Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Riichi Nomi lecture. This is for quarter 3 of 2024, and we thought that this time it'd be interesting to hear about some tips and tricks for passing the professional mahjong exams. There's been a lot of buzz about being a foreign professional. Both the WRC through JPML and potentially some other orgs is having a professional program, as well as Psycho Isan out, but they are more primarily based in LA on the West Coast. So more than ever before, there has been an ability for Americans to think about actually, and other people outside of Japan, to actually think about being a professional mahjong player. And so we have brought Jenn in, who is a current JPML pro living in Japan, to just give us some tips and tricks on preparing for an exam, because the exam itself is a bit different than actually playing mahjong. It's just, it tests a lot of knowledge that isn't necessarily common, but is still important to know. And so, here's Jenn, who will take it away.
Okay, hello, everybody. I'm Jenn. Oh yeah, that's me. Online, I usually go by Mahjong Jenn. So I've been a pro for almost 20 years, I guess. I took the test in 2005. I only started learning Mahjong in 2004, so it was actually really quick that I decided to take the test. And then joined, so back then you would take the test and then you wouldn't join the league until like 6 months later. Now you can actually join immediately after you pass the test, but back then it didn't matter if you passed the test or if you passed it with needing a study. They used to do Kenshukai, so it was like study group. Everybody took study group, so your score on the test kind of determined which study group you would be in, but everybody took the test and then joined 6 months later back then. And immediately when I joined, I was also part of Konami's Mahjong Fight Club. Might be my last year there, I don't know, because I am dead last for the popularity contest that we had this year, but for women, I still got more votes than Garth, so that's important. And yeah, back in 2006, I also started RiichiMahjong.com. It hasn't been updated much lately, but I think it will be kind of revived. I revived some of the podcasts are back up now. The old podcast, Garth and I used to do a podcast like really regularly. I guess not really, but maybe once or twice a month. And we do it like at events and stuff like that. I think there's 100 and some episodes that are back up online. And then, I read the book Riichi Mahjong, The Only Way to Play, which the new version is coming out next month. And yeah, I'll talk about that later. I guess we're doing an event. Sorry, to get started. Alright, so that's me. And I'm going to talk about protests, but why? I took the protest. Honestly, it was like 20 years ago. So really, I probably know less than you would think, just because you're a pro doesn't... people only take the protest one time, right? So it's pretty long ago, I would say, but I actually have looked at the protests every year. I'm always like, I wonder if I could still pass, kind of thing. So, but I know that Yoshi just said that there's a lot of stuff that's maybe not common knowledge, but it's not actually that complicated. It's more... it's really basic stuff that if you're a proficient player, then you would already know it mostly, and then there are some maybe, I guess you would call them kind of trick questions or pitfalls that they kind of trip you up on. So it's just certain things that most of the questions you should be able to answer if you're a really proficient player. That means you know how to score, your weights and everything like that. So it's not as hard as it would seem, I think. And also the written test is probably a lot less important than people make it out to be. I mean, you have to be able to get a certain score. You have to be pretty proficient in Mahjong, but I think you'll notice that no matter which, there's never like a line, and nothing is written on the test. You have to get at least 80% on this test. I think that people have maybe suggested, oh, you should have this certain score, but I don't think there's ever been announced, for as far as I know, for any league. You have to get this exact score or higher, or else you won't pass. I think generally you should aim for around this score, because there's a lot of other factors involved with the protest, which we'll get into later as well. But I mean, if they want you to be in the pro league, then they will put you in the pro league. So I think that appeal is also very important. A lot of the things, I'll be talking mostly about the World Reach Professional Mahjong Test and Japan Professional Mahjong Test, Japan Professional Mahjong League Test, because those are the ones that I'm affiliated with. Those are the ones I know, but especially with the new World Reach test, it's going to be a lot of things like what you can bring to the community, and there'll be other ways that you can show that. So the written test is basically, I mean, it's really basic knowledge that you should have. And then the things that you get caught up, like tripped up on. But I mean, if you take a test, you want to do well, right? You don't want to just say, oh, I only got like 40%, but they passed me because blah, blah, blah. Which may have happened in my case. I actually don't know. Sorry. It's like, I mean, I don't even know. Like now they have, oh, you passed and you don't need to do the study session. Since they didn't have that back then, they didn't ever announce the scores that we got or anything. Now JPML is actually online now. So you can actually see your score, but I'm not sure if they used to show you your score. So when you're going to take a pro test, you have to choose the pro organization. Like I said, I'm in the Japan Professional Mahjong League, which is the biggest. There's the Nihon Professional Mahjong Association, which is relatively new. I think when I joined, it was only 5 years old or so. And there's Saikoi-sen, which a lot of people have heard of. They're having an American branch created this year. And Mahjong Union and Real Mahjong Unit. So the World Reach Professional Mahjong is going to be the first association or organization to be established outside of Japan. And yeah, it won't have a base in Japan, and so it's actually going to be run also by non-Japanese people. But since there's a really strong affiliation with the Japan Professional Mahjong League, and also partnerships with the Nihon Professional Mahjong Association and Mahjong Union, it's going to be, and I think it's probably going to be better than than like me being a part of JPML. The only reason I'm staying in JPML is because I'll still be living in Japan, but I think there's going to be a lot of really cool stuff happening there. I'm talking before I bring up my points. Okay, so when you think about which league you want to join, you think of like proximity, membership fees. All leagues have membership fees, and some like require you to do a lot of things that cost a lot more extra money. And what benefits you get from it. I think also it's important, like what contributions the league makes to the community. Probably JPML has been really big in making the WRC happen, which feels important to me. Also, the system and rules. Some like JPML uses mostly A rules for their tournaments. So if you don't like A rules, then JPML is not going to be good. WRC is going to, World Reach Professional Mahjong is going to use WRC rules. Kyokai uses rules that are more. Kyokai is NPM, uses rules that are closer uh, to like M League rules. And so you gotta think about those things. Also, like what benefits you're going to get from paying those dues. So yeah, I chose JPML for basically all those reasons. I could have actually joined probably any of the leagues at the time. One of my friends really wanted me to join Mahjong Union. Um, it wasn't. It was like mostly a tour based. I think it kind of still is, but now they have more stationary tournaments and leagues. But it was like a tour based uh, thing, and it was like known as having the most difficult test as well. And I wasn't. I don't know. I don't think I had confidence that I could remember 110 fu or something. I don't know what it is. And also, it wasn't as like exciting as JPML. It didn't feel as exciting. It felt more intellectual, and I wanted to have a lot of the exciting stuff as well. A few of my friends joined Saikoisen. A few of the people in my club joined Saikoisen before I even joined JPML. And yeah, I think back then it seemed like they had 2 tests a year and JPML only had 1. It seemed a lot more prestigious to me, so I had the chance to join JPML. I was invited to, so I chose that. So yeah, like I said, World Reach Professional Mahjong is going to be established as the first professional organization based outside of Japan. We have the partnerships with NPM and Mahjong Union. Also, I'll be working really closely with it, which is why I can talk about it. So I have most knowledge about it. I don't really know about the Saikoisen tests, so a lot of stuff will carry over, I think, but I won't be able to answer any questions about it at all. So the World Reach League already had their first live session in Cologne, Germany last month. And they're going to have a really cool system where they have these live leagues, and instead of requiring everyone to go every time, the participation is going to go towards Dani points. So they're going to have a Dani system like JPML does. Not every league has a Dani system. So I think also on the main professional league is going to be online, so it's going to be very international, which I think is really cool. And also, sorry, and didn't end up not being able to see my notes, so I'm going everything off the slides right now. So USPML is going to be, in the United States, USPML is going to be like the contact point. And so there'll be live leagues in the US as well. I don't think they'll be only in New York. I think that there are going to be also like other places that will have live events, or USPML will hold live events in other places as well, but that's all still kind of in the works. So, and who knows, if you join, maybe you'll be like helping to set all of that up. So in Japan, the way the system is set up now in Japan is that there are home leagues and tournaments. So I would say home, but these are like the leagues and tournaments run by your own organization. So they're open only to the professionals in your organization, and usually not amateurs or other leagues. Then there's open tournaments, but open generally means that amateurs are also allowed to play. So it's not just open to other pros, it's open to everybody. And then they'll have a professional qualifier and an amateur qualifier. So that's the difference there. So if you join the World Reach Professional Mahjong organization, then you'll be able to play in all JPML tournaments, even the home leagues and stuff, if you're there long enough. You can't just like play in one league session and not play in the rest of it. Like league lasts 5 months out of the year. And it's 5 months and 5 months. So you'd have to be able to play in all 5, or probably at least 4 but you'll be welcome to play in the JPML ones and also the open tournaments of the other professional. I want to address, I do think that there's been a rumor that the WRC Pro test isn't going to be hard enough, so the other leagues aren't going to accept it. And that's just really kind of a silly... Like, leagues don't generally worry about what is on the test of other leagues. Like, the only way we even really know is from if we look it up online. It's not something that they're worried about. If, like, nobody cares if you know some of the tests have, like, who's the current title holder of this event, or can you write this Yaku in kanji. JPML used to have questions like that as well, but no other leagues care if you know about that kind of stuff. So the most important things are going to be if you can keep the game going, if you can score. Honestly, the thing they're most worried about is Japanese. So I've spoken personally with the leagues, our partner leagues, and I'm going to say our, even though I'm going to stay JPML because I'm helping out, but the thing they're most worried about basically is Japanese. So the thing is, if any professionals from outside of Japan that took the test in English, I should say, are going to play in tournaments run by the other leagues, they'll have to make arrangements for that beforehand, unless they have an extremely high level of Japanese. And I'm not talking about just scoring and things, because there's also administration things that they're concerned about. So that's going to be the biggest issue. So don't worry about, like, if the WRC test is difficult enough. It is, and also nobody is worried about that in Japan. Yeah, so that's what I just addressed there. So we're going to go over today is the things you need to know for the test. You need to know rules, you need to be able to score, you need to know how to see your weights, difficult weights as well. How to calculate comeback scores, how many types and tiles, how many away your hand is, we'll talk about terms a little bit. For the JPML test, and JPML is going to be working together with WRC for their test, but basically they only have scoring, weights, and comeback scores right now. But in the past they have had how many types of tiles and how many away, and terms, and a couple other things, handwritten hand histories, which has a shorthand that is different than probably what you're used to. And in the past they have had those, so they may show up on the test. There's really no way to tell. They may show up on the JPML test again, because every year it changes and what they have on the test changes. It's been consistent for about 5 years now, but there's no guarantee that they won't add one of the old sections again later. JPML used to have essays. I don't think that they do anymore. And then there's an interview section. There's interviews. I think all leagues have interviews. And usually there's a tournament. You have like a tournament that you have to actually show that you're playing, that you can play. So first of all, read the rules, and read the rules again. Basically for all the questions except the weights, you need to know what the rules are for the organization you're joining for the tests that you're taking, because it's going to affect the scoring section, it's going to affect the comeback scores, and then there might be actual questions about rules as well. So the things that you really need to check the rules beforehand, basically you check this list, you'll probably be fine. There might be a couple other things that are like specific to the rule set, but first of all, make sure you know which Yaku are allowed. It's like if you like, what is Renho, the blessing of man? How much is that worth? Is it allowed? Which Yakumon, like what does the Yakumon require? Do you need the green dragon for all green? Is double Yakuman allowed? I don't think any leagues allow double Yakuman just for the way the weight is set up, but most of them do allow combined Yakuman now. JPML used to not allow it. Even if you had Suanko and all honors, you could only have one Yakuman, but now if they're combined, then double Yakuman is allowed. Does 35 and 4Han round up to Mangan, and JPML doesn't, and WRC will, so all of the scoring questions will round up. Is there Kazuo Yakuman? I don't think I've ever seen it in pro games, but there could be like a rule that I missed in other leagues, so you always need to check if there's Kazuo Yakuman. What are penalties issued for? What is the penalty for a mistaken pon, chi, ron, or tsumo? I think generally all penalties in pro games are added to the total score, but I mean, you just need to double check that. Sometimes there's a question on the test. This person said ron. What is their penalty and how is it paid? Was a protocol for calling tiles on the old JPML test? There's actually a question: what order do you call tiles? When you call tiles, what order do you act in? So the actions there's 4 actions when you call a tile. You have to vocally call for the tile, and you have to show the tiles you're going to use with the call. And you have to take the tile and you have to discard. So what order? On the old JPML test, you actually took the tile before you discarded, according to protocol. Now that's changed. Now, in timed games, most leagues allow that. But the basic protocol is to take the tile first and then discard after. JPML allows both in all matches. I know that other leagues allow either way in timed matches because it's actually much faster to discard before you take the tile. Does the power rule apply, and in which situations? Like if you do if you call a con off the board, then and you win off Rinshan, is the discarder responsible for paying that or not? How about with Yakuman? Does the rule apply? Do you get double fu for the double wind pairs? I think mostly no now. JPML used to allow it, not anymore. And you get the 2 fu. I mean, these things are usually listed on the tournament sheet. There's a rule list like handed out when you play in other leagues' tournaments, and this is printed out and put on the table because these are the things that you always have to ask before you play in a tournament as well. So you definitely want to know them for the test. What is your specific league doing with these rules? Do you get 2 fu for sumo after the rinshan after you con? And if people tie in first place, what happens? Usually they have tiebreakers for placings in the overall tournament, but almost all tables are going to split tie score. They're going to split the UMA for tie scores. But you need to double check that. And also, depending on the tournament, the placing bonus or the UMA might change. WRC is going to be 515 across the board. JPML has different, I think we have 3 different UMA that we use right now. So for A rules, it's a waterfall UMA with plus and minus 12 total. For when we use WRC rules, then it's 5 and 15, and when we use WRC rules with red, it's 10 and 20, 10 and 30, sorry. And sometimes on the test they say for this rule and for this particular tournament, so you would have to know each tournament. I know some of the other leagues also have different tournaments that have different rules that they use, or they use a different rule set only for one tournament. So they would have questions on the test about that one tournament or that special rule set as well. And how is seeding determined? JPML and WRC use the same seeding. One of the issues there is how many times the dice is rolled. So, like, JPML only rolls the dice once to decide where you're sitting, and then one more time to decide who the dealer is. But the other leagues generally roll the dice twice. So that's something that often comes up on the test as well. And what happens to reach 6 at the end of the game? Does it go to the first place player? This might also depend on the tournament. Generally, they stay on the table for JPML. You need to check that in the rules because that will also affect like comeback scores. If you end in tenpai and this person doesn't end in tenpai, then can you get first place? And yeah, so when I said read the rules 3 times, you just need to make sure that you take notes on anything that stands out to you. If it's something that's already like normal, the way that you already play, then I think you wouldn't have to ever take any notes or anything like that. But so look at some example rule questions. Like I said, these haven't appeared on JPML for a while, but we're going to go over them as if it's the WRC rules. And they could appear on the World Reach test. I think it would be very likely that they would appear, but I'm not sure. I'm not making it. So at the end of South 4, 2 players are tied for first place. So the player next in turn from the first dealer was given the first place score, given the first place UMA. Is this correct or incorrect? I'm not sure if we want to. Where did the thread go? The thread is in tournaments. Okay, I see it. Does anyone want to try and answer that? Or should we? And you can just go over the answer either way. I'm not sure if there's a preference. It's split, yeah, exactly. So it would be incorrect to give the closest to first dealer the UMA, or the higher UMA. So after seeding is determined, how many times of the dice rolled to determine the first dealer? I just said that. Yeah, it's rolled once for WRC, once for JPML. A player declared roll and realized it was a mistake before opening his hand. What is the penalty? So this one is interesting, I think. Chombo. So in JPML, dishonor to the entire Mahjong family. And extended Mahjong family, actually. So actually in JPML, it is a chombo only for pro-only tournaments. If there's a tournament that amateurs are playing in, then it's a dead hand for everybody. So calling it a chombo is actually considered too strict for non-pros. So this actually would probably be a good test question if JPML ever brings these back. For WRC rules, the official rules are it's a chombo. And if you play with the sort of the optional rules, then it's a dead hand. In JPML, if amateurs are playing, it's a dead hand. Okay, so we'll move on to scoring. The rules are like, you never know what rule is going to show up. They're kind of always that kind of theme. It's something that they think that you might make a mistake on, basically. Like another example, I'll just tell you one real quick, is the dealer discarded the first tile before North was able to take their last tile. Who gets a penalty and what is the penalty? And that has changed over the years as well, so that's the kind of thing that it might be written in the rules, that it might not be written that explicitly. It might say that the dealer is responsible for making sure everybody takes their last tile, but it might not say what happens if they discard first. So sometimes it's going to be a guessing game. The thing is, when you take a test, make sure you answer everything you know first, and then go back and do the ones that you don't know. Because you need to get in the points that you can and not waste time on the ones that you're not sure about. So the most important skill as a pro is scoring. You have to be able to score, and you have to be able to know if you're paying other people the right score. And it is a massive part of all tests. The new JPML test, I think it's 50 questions, 50 scoring questions. And they definitely put trick questions in there, and they also put like really easy questions in there. So sometimes it's really easy, but you think it might be a trick question, and you might get caught up on it that way. So I would say learn scoring in and out. I always tell people, if you're going to do anything in the spotlight for Mahjong, you need to learn how to score first. I think it's been Demon's Master has been very vocal about how I refused to even commentate with him until he knew how to score. It's not, and making mistakes is fine. I mean, on the pro test, you will definitely make some mistakes, even if you know scoring really well. But knowing how it works and knowing how to score is really important. I think I would say it's most important. This is my opinion. It's the most important basic skill, but I think it's probably a common opinion. So the ways you can practice that, because really scoring just takes a lot of practice. There are a few tricks and tips that we'll go over, but practice knowing the score of your hand when you're playing online. Figure out the score of your hand even before your tempai. And think about, like, if I get this, then the score will go up this amount. If you're playing live, ask your friends. If you're like, all right, guys, I'm going to take the pro test, so I need you to let me score everything. We've done that on stream before, playing on auto table. Somebody who really wanted to practice got to score all the hands for all of us. And there's a Konbanwa score trainer. I think I have a link. Oh, I don't have a link to. You'll have to search for it. But also the JPML test for this year has been released. So it's available, and you can do it. It's a Google form. You can actually take the test and see your score afterwards right away, and it tells you which ones you got wrong. It doesn't tell you like what you might have got caught up on or what you got wrong, but or why you got it wrong. But it has multiple choice, so it's a really good trainer. There's 50 questions. You can just go in and I think you won't even like remember all of them, so you can probably take it more than once. One trick when you're doing the scoring section is always count the Han first, always count Yaku first. Because, I'm sorry, this is a mistake. No need to count Fu for scores 5 Han or higher. It shouldn't be Yaku, it should be Fu. So it's a typo. Sometimes you'll see like really big Kan hands, but it's already a Mangan. A Mangan for because of the Yaku, you don't have to worry about the Fu, so you'll end up wasting time. And yeah, it's 50 questions. You only have basically, it says you should only use 15 minutes for those 50 questions. I don't think that WR, the World Reach test, will be that strict on time. But you still need to be able to do them quickly. And so 15 minutes, it's like 18 seconds per question, basically. So make sure you're not counting all these Fu when you don't need to. For each question, you need to make sure you check what round it is, what seed it is, whether it's Reach or Tsumo, and whether there's Rinshan. Because those are some of the things people get caught up on. Or they get tripped up on, sorry. And then beware of massive hands with loads of Yaku. Because sometimes when you count up to 10 yaku, you maybe forget another one. And it's sanbaimon, but you only counted up to baimon. Especially when things are called, sometimes it's easy to miss things like sanshoku doko. And sanshoku doko shows up so much more on the tests than they do in real life. And make sure that there's certain weights where it looks like the hand might be a certain yaku, but the weight doesn't allow for that yaku. So watch out for things like that. So let's do a practice question. Start with east one, west seat. Oh no, the score came up. I was supposed to bring that one up later. Don't look at the score. Just look at the green letters. Okay, so what's the score for this one? It doesn't tell you the yaku though, so. Alright, second mistake. On my part, but. Alright, so what are the yaku that you see here? This is one that, so I made Yoshi and Tips take the test so I can add in some examples that they got wrong. So this is one that Yoshi got wrong. Sorry to put you on blast, Yoshi, but. So you see this, at first glance it looks like Sananko, right? You have 3 anko there. You wanted to get the 2 for the Suanko hand, but no, instead you got the 3, so it's only Sananko. And, right, exactly, so it's Jin-chan. Oh, you reach, yeah, this is not 2,400. Oh, good, the score was actually wrong, so 2004,000 was the wrong answer that Yoshi gave. That's why I put it in there. It totally did not, but we're gonna go with that. It's Ritsumon, not Sanko. You don't get Sanko for this. You get Junchan and Ipeiko. Let's see. And that's the proof that I knew what I was talking about, and I just put the wrong numbers in. You skip the 3 and hold out for Suton. Okay. See the pure outside hand, the Junchan, 789. So this is one that I think this sort of question is really common on the protests. And don't forget the Riichi and the Tsumo as well. And if you take the JPML test to practice with, all of them are East 1 with no continuances or anything. So it's really just straight up scoring, and it's really like speed, like focused on speed only. Oh no, don't look at that. East 1 dealer Tsumo. We don't know if it's the correct score or not. Like I said, that one was the wrong answer. So is this going to be the right answer or not? So in this case, what's the yaku? Yeah, the actual answer is 3,000, 6,000, not 2,000, 4,000 for the first question. How about this question? Yeah, exactly. So this is, if you look at this at first glance, it looks like Tanyao, Pinfu, Ipeiko. And it looks like Sanshoku, but you can't take the Sanshoku if you take Pinfu. You can only take one or the other. So there's no Pinfu in this hand. It's Tanyao, Sanshoku, Ipeiko, which is, and Tsumo, which is Mangan instead of 1326. So that's one I think that shows up a lot on protests. Oh god. Don't look at the score. Don't look at the score. Hide. Okay, but anyway, so name all the yaku for this hand. So this is one I think people often maybe forget the flush the Hoitsu, or they forget that it's an outside hand, the Chanta. That's a 1, so yeah, that's my little design. I designed the tiles for my book when I wrote it the first time so that there wouldn't be any copyright issues. And I'm not an artist, so that's my 1, so, and you'll find it throughout the whole book as well, so. Please, yeah, don't hate. Well, you can hate on it, just not to my face. Katsuchun Shosangen. Yeah, so we're gonna count Shosangen as 4 instead of counting the Yaku separate. So it's faster. And yes, Sananko Hoitsu. Honroto. Honroto is also, we're counting as 4 instead of the Honro and Toi Toi. So I think it would be Kazue, right? If you count. Don't forget Chanta as well. But there is no Kazuo Yakumon, so it's Sanbaimon. So small dragons, all honors and terminals, that's already 8. 3 concealed triples, mixed outside hand, Chanta, and half flush Hoitsu. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think you're right, it does. Yeah. Either way, it's gonna be Sanbaimon. No, you're right, that's a typo as well. Okay. Look, the symbols over here because we have lots of Kansu. 2Han is too little. No. I was just, yeah, it's just my doing this in the middle of the night mistake, but you're right. And maybe if there was one less, I would get that wrong on the test. Alright, here we go. Dealer. What are all of the Yaku for this one? I think this is one, I put them all next to each other. But on the test, probably one of the 9s would be on the side, or actually on the test it was the 1s instead, so it was on the other edge. So I do think somebody that took the test for my thing missed it. Yeah, half flesh. I have half flesh is 3. Yeah, it's not Yakumon, it's Kazuo Yakumon. It's dealer 36,000. Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes. Okay, whatever's on the screen minus the mixed outside hand, because he's right, that stacks. But you don't have to list the Yaku. I guess maybe in some tests you have to list the Yaku. You don't have to here. I'll edit the PowerPoint in case I ever give this presentation again as well. This has not been proofread at all. So I sent it to Yoshi and he didn't proofread it, so. Okay, so for this one we have Sanshoku, that's to Sankansu. We have double east. And this one we can count Chanta. This Chanta is just 1 since it's open. What are we missing? Toi Toi. Did I list them out there? Double east, all triples, 3 quads, mixed triples, and mixed outside hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That seems like it's only Baimon. Hold on. Was this the Binshan one? This is Binshan Sumo, isn't it? Did I forget to... Oh, it's Honroto. I counted them separately here, so it works. So like I said with these, the test gives you the answers. It doesn't say like... It doesn't actually... It just gives you the answer. It doesn't give you a breakdown of the answers, so... Hold on, let me find Yoshi's test real quick. Because this is where it came from. I think this is a Binshan Sumo one that I didn't write down. Oh, Sananko, that's what it is. Concealed triples. I didn't write that on there, did I? Oh shoot, how do I go back? There it is. Concealed triples. Alright. This is turning into a disaster. It's concealed triples for 11. That's what it was. Yes. Okay. That's why I need a proofreader. I should have sent it to you, Tips, instead of to Max. So don't forget don't forget the mixed triples, and also don't forget the 3 concealed triples. 1, 2, 3. I'm just giving you examples of, like, real life examples of what you could miss. So memorize the scoring chart and the foo. You can use tricks for 90 foo and for 110 foo, like 40 plus 50 or 50 plus 60. For 70 foo, I always think about it sequentially. So if you look at the first two numbers, it's 2, 3, 4, 5 for non-dealers. It's just, yeah, just the numbers in order. And then you divide by 2 and round up, so it's 600, 1200 for a draw. 12, 23 for 2 foo, right? And then 3, 4 also starts sequentially for the dealer and goes up to 6,800. And there'll be, yeah, the foo trip ups will be spots that look open-ended, but you have to count as a middleweight. And don't forget Rinshan. It's a Yaku and Han for JPML, and I believe WRC it's 2 foo. So that's one of the things you need to know for sure you need to check for before you take the test. Oh my god, I did the animation wrong. Okay, we'll just go over this one instead of... okay. So, in this case, it looks like a shava weight. A lot of people count this as a shava weight mistakenly, but it's actually a kanchan weight. So first of all, it's going to be sananko even if you ron. That's something that people get tripped up on the test. Also, if you count the foo, it's going to be 8, 16. I guess it doesn't change the foo in this particular hand, but I think if these were not edge tiles, like let's say they're middle tiles. Oh, actually no, it changes the foo for wrong. Because it's 8, 16, 20. Remember, these 5s count as 20, and also you get if you draw, you get the 2 foo for tsumo. You get the 2 foo for the kanchan weight as well. So instead of it being 8, 16, and 18 for the ron, then it's 8, 16, 20 for the triple of the 5, and plus 2 for the kanchan. So it changes the foo. I think it's 60, isn't it? I think 32 is the answer Max gave. Let me check this. Is that how I wrote it? So you're gonna have 22 counted foo, plus you get a 30 more, so it's gonna be 60. So I think actually... Oh, I'm looking at the wrong side. I think this is one that... Sorry. Okay, we can move on to the next one. It should be San Uncle 2 foo and 6 or 2 Yaku and 60 foo for 3,900. And I think that 32 was the common mistaken answer. But that doesn't make sense because it wouldn't be San Uncle, so maybe it's just a foo mistake that people made for it. Because it should be 60, 22 plus 10 plus 20. Okay, I'll find it while we move on to the next one. That was 999. 90 food. This one actually has the correct answer for some reason. Because Yoshi got the correct answer, and then I just, I must have just written like what his answers were when I was trying to write the correct answer. Anyway, yeah, 90 food. So 32, 64, 80. 80 with the open con. And then 82. It's more than 90. 64, 70, 70, 80. 82, it's 110. Hmm? Yeah, 110 foo. So that actually shows up on the JPML test. It never did before. It used to be that only Mahjong Union had the 110 questions. But for some reason they decided that 110 is going to be is going to be on the test now. I don't know if it'll be on the WRC test. So you can add the points together, add the 50 and 60 together for the right answer. Or you can memorize the chart. But basically, you need to know the chart. Let's see that question. Oh, I took a pitch screenshot. That'll be faster. Sorry. Okay. Anyway, it's been an hour, so we can take a short break while I try and find this real quick. Maybe a 2-minute break.
This would also be a good spot if anyone has like any questions that they were hoping to have answered.
If you think I'm qualified after all these typos. Oh, there it is, like the third question. God. Yeah, it's 3,900 for sure, so. Double checked my answer. No questions. Okay. We can move on to multi-weights then. Multi-weights really mostly just practice. JPML has a ton of past tests with practice questions for it. Oh, Thomas is typing something. Are you typing a question, Thomas? You recommend people take a minute and write the score chart on a scrap piece of paper early in the test? If it helps you. I mean, if you have it memorized, then you might not need to. But if it helps you to look at it, then that's fine. I mean, you're not going to be able to have a score chart on the table if you're playing in a pro match. So I would try and learn how to not rely on it. But if you can memorize it 2 minutes before and then write it down, then I think it's fine. Yeah, it might take you too long to write it out. If it helps you to like look at 70 foo and 90 foo and 110 foo real quick before starting and just doing those, maybe. But yeah, for the new JPML one, it's 18 seconds per question. For the old ones, it was not that fast. So it's better if you can do it without writing down the score chart. But if it's gonna save you time personally, even if you can't finish all the questions, then yeah, I think that's a personal choice. But I would try and learn how to play and score without ever looking at the score chart. Because, yeah, in pro matches, you won't be able to. So these are sites, if you want to write them down real quick. I think probably mostly you know the full flush sites. I think they're in a lot of Discord servers as well. The JPML protest is also there. Alright, so when you're doing multi-weights, which is flush weights basically, full flushes, you want to memorize as many shapes as possible. So, you know, if you see 2, 2, 2, 3, you should always just have it memorized that that's always going to be 1, 3, 4 weight. And if you have 2, 2, 2, 4, it's always going to be a 3, 4 weight. You should just have those memorized. You shouldn't have to think about, okay, if it's a kantan, it's this, and if it's a tanki, then it's this. The 4 tile shapes should definitely always be memorized. And move on to 7 tile shapes. These you should memorize as well. There are a lot more shapes than this that you can memorize. But I think that it's really hard to memorize all of them, especially if you're starting now. So you should probably try and memorize as many as possible, and then we're gonna go over some tricks for when you don't have them memorized. This 10 tile shape, especially 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, 7, I would definitely memorize that one right now because it's just all the tiles from 1 through 8. And the 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 shape is going to be all the suji except the 2, 5, 8 suji. Whatever your triple is, it's not that suji. And this is, you know the tatsumaki shape? It's also called a sandwich shape, 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, 4, 4. So it's also all of the tiles from the outside. The one where there's a gap in between, I call it a Swiss cheese sandwich. 2, 2, 2, 4, 6, 6, 6 is just the middle tiles. And then the 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4 shape is called an open face sandwich. Thank you for that, Jack. We call it an open face sandwich because the 1 is not a weight in this situation. Only did 2, 3, 4, so it's basically like everything, you have a piece of bread and everything on top of the bread. Like the 2 is your bread, and everything on top of the bread counts as a weight, but nothing below it. So, and this is an explanation that I found in Japanese, which I thought was actually really good. So if you see the 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4 shape, then you know the 1. I mean, if it's anywhere and they have it's 5, 5, 5, 6, 6, 6, 7, then it's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, and not 4 because it's an open face sandwich, so you can't turn it upside down. I finally got the PowerPoint open on my phone, but I can't see the notes. Okay, so we might be missing lots of information that I thought was important at one point in time. There's no way to know. So let's learn how to separate out blocks. I would separate, when I find a shape that I don't have memorized, I separate out the blocks. So you separate out the triples. So here we can separate out the triples, the 1s can be separated out, and the 2s can be separated out to make it 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, sorry, this first look for separated tiles. Read your, okay, this is why I need notes. Here we go. So the 9 is separated, so the 9 is definitely going to be part of the weight. You're not going to have any weight that the 9 is not part of. So I mean, it's either going to be a tanki or a middle weight, or both. In this case, it's both. So you have 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. The 2 is your, sorry, 1, 1 is your pair, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 and 8 is the middle weight. Or you can use the 1s and 2s as triples. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the 9 tanki weight is there. So there's not going to be any other weights. You don't have to look for any other weights. If it's separated like this, then that's definitely going to be part of your weight. And then separate out triples. So if we have a hand with 4 5s and 3 4s and 3 6s, like this, you can separate out the triples, and then we come to a shape that maybe you have memorized. If you separate out triples in a pair, then you can find shapes that you have memorized. The seven tile shapes. So, for example, this could be the 6. So it could be a shabo with the 6 and the 4. Yeah, the 5 is down a little bit. Okay. I don't have my notes, so I don't remember what I was going to say about this one. Can you open notes on the mobile version of PowerPoint? I don't think I can. Ugh. Okay, anyway. Remember that if you're using 4 of a tile, it can't count as your weight. So if you answer as one of your weights, it's going to be incorrect. In this case, yeah, we could also separate out like the 6s and see that the 6 is a middleweight, but it's a middleweight and shabo. And one trick that I want you to keep in mind is that every sequence requires exactly 1 tile from each Suji series. And these concepts are like go way more in depth in my book, but we don't have a lot of time left, so we're gonna kind of go through the tricks a little bit quickly. If you see in like for the 4 5 6 sequence, you have the 4 from the 1 4 7, the 5 from the 2 5 8, and the 6 from the 3 6 9. So keep in mind that every sequence requires exactly 1 tile from each Suji series. So if you count the Suji series, we have 2 from the 2 5 8 here, and 2 from the 3 6 9, and only 1 from 1 4 7. So we know that we need a 4 7 to complete this sequence. I mean, this is, you can just look at this and know you don't need the trick, but just to illustrate it so it's easy to understand. So when you have more complicated weights as well, you can count the Suji and say, okay, I don't have enough from this Suji, so that must be my weight. And then you can double check it. For example, in this case, yeah, that's in my book, so if you like that tip, buy my book. It might be the only good tip in the book, but so in this case, if you take out, let's say the 9s are a pair, then we can count the Suji series. We count 1 2 3 4 in the 2 5 8. 1 2 3 4 in the 3 6 9, and 1 2 3 in the 1 4 7. So 1 4 7 is going to be a weight. Separate out the 6 triple, and then you can see the middle 8 weight. And like I said with the Sujis, so you have 4 of the 2 5 8, 4 of the 3 6 9. You need 1 more 1 4 7. So where's 1 4 7 and 8 weight? And then in this case, we can take out the 7s as a pair. Or is it triple? What did I do? Separate the 7 triple. And you can see the 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 8. You can count Suji there as well. So 7, if you separate 7 as a triple, then you get the 2, 5, 8, the long no beitan weight. The triple beitan weight. And then you can, if you separate the 7s as a pair, then we're going to do sequences. So you can count the Suji for the 3, 6, 9 weight. I go into more in depth about these sort of tricks in my book as well, but I would say memorize as many shapes as possible because you'll be able to separate out shapes that you can recognize. This one as well, you have if you take it all the way up to the 7, those are Suji, so you're left with a 7, 7, 7, 8, and you can see the 6, 8, 9 weight there, because that's the shape that we talked about before, where you have a triple plus something that's stuck to it. So it'll be easier to recognize patterns like that too if you memorize the patterns that we know. But there's a lot more patterns, and there are websites with it. I think that Riichi Nomi's website has some links to websites that explain this as well. But that's also a big section on the test, so you're going to want to do a lot of those drills. And I think I wouldn't aim for 100% even on that section. Just try and get as many as you can finished within the time. And do the ones that look easy first, again. Now we have comeback scores. Comeback scores are the worst. The worst. But they're really important once you become a pro as well. Not just for getting first place in single games, but we have tournament style. They call it tournament style, which sounds weird in English. But you have to get basically top 2 at your table. In poker, they call it a shootout. So the top 2 at the table move on. And this usually starts at the best 16, but some tournaments do it even earlier. So you have to be able to really like tell, what do I get in the last hand of the last game? What do I need to win from, and who do I need to win from to get first place or second place to move on? Poker mentioned, yeah. Yeah, I do a lot of poker terms and stuff as well, usually in my stream too. I call middleweights gut shots. And also in the final table, you have to it's basically a rule in professional mahjong. If you are in the last hand of the last game of a final table, you're generally only allowed to win if it gets you first place. There's no winning to move from 4th place to 3rd place. And that's usually explained to all participants before the game starts. So formulas for comeback scores. Again, I go way more in depth in my book, and there's more in depth like calculations and formulas. But we're gonna go over some tricks here that you can use. So first of all, you need to count the difference between your score and the person in first place that you need to come back to. So you want to figure out the difference in score and add 100 to it, so you make sure that you're in first place and you're not tying the score. Any reach sticks that are on the table, you're just going to count them as part of your score when you're counting score differences, because if you win the hand, you're going to get them. So just count them from the beginning as part of your score. Don't bother with any other calculations with them. For a non-direct hit, if you win from somebody else, you're always going to make up you have to make up the full score difference between you and first place. So if it's a 7,000 point score difference, then you need to get 7,700 or 8,000 if it's a round-up situation. And direct hit, you always need to make up half the score difference, because they're going to lose as much as they pay you, so the difference is double with the score, what you get from them. The amount that the amount that you make up ends up being double if you get a direct hit. If you draw your winner as a dealer, the first place is going to needs to pay 1/4 of the score difference. So this is where you also have to have the scoring chart memorized. If you're dealer, the thing is, as dealer, you can usually continue as dealer, but there's some situations where like time has run out and you're dealer and this is the last hand that you can play. So it does matter sometimes as dealer. So basically the non-dealer is gonna, if the first place player is gonna be a non-dealer and they need to pay 1/4 of the score difference. So whatever the score difference is, you're gonna divide it by 4. And that's the score they need, so that's the whatever all you need. If you need 1,000 points from that first place player, if you have a 4,000, let's say you have a 3,900 score difference, So you need 4,000 points. So you're going to divide that by 4. Okay, I need 1,000 points from that first place player. So I need to get 1,000 all if I'm going to draw the winner. And oh, I put that in there twice. A non-dealer draw always requires a first place player. A first place dealer pay 1/3 of the score difference. So if the first place player's dealer, you're going to divide by 3 to figure out what they need to play, what they need to pay. And the non-dealer has to pay 1/5 of the score difference for you to make it up. So whatever the score difference is, if the opponent is a non-dealer, you're going to divide it by 5. And yes, more detailed calculation explanations and practice problems in the book. Yes, strictly first place. If there's Ura involved, then you need to be able to calculate with 2 Ura. You can't. Generally, you're not going to calculate for if somebody cons after I reach and there's more Ura, then you can't think about that. But there's allowance for considering Ura. But then you need to make sure, like, if I get. Usually, you would calculate for if there's 2 Ura. So if I win this and I get 2 Ura. And you can count for Ippatsu too, but then if you don't draw Ippatsu, then you wouldn't win if 2 Ura still wouldn't be enough. Does that make sense? So, or if you have a triple, you can count for 3 Ura. But, yeah, counting for Ura is fine. As long as you can calculate that it's possible for there to be enough Ura to get you into first place. So with the possibility, it's allowed. If 3 Ura, if you have a triple and 3 Ura would not get you into first place, then you can't account for it like that. And if you only have a pair and 2 Ura would not get you into first place, you can't account for it for that. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. So let's use these formulas. Let's look at the dealer: 35,200 south, 27,600 west, 33,800, and north 23,400. So as a south seat player, what could you roll from west or north to take first place? That's going to be the win from anywhere. So first you want to count the difference. Your difference from first place is 7,600 points. Right, so 77 if there's no Kiriage Mangan, but since we're doing WRC rolls and there's Kiriage Mangan, so as a non-dealer, then you wouldn't get 7,700 points. You would go for the Mangan hand. If it's JPMLA rolls, you could go for 7,700. Or if you're playing online, you can count for it like that. Also, keep in mind that the West player has 33,800. So you need to account for that difference as well. You also need to make up that difference, no matter where you win from. And that difference is 6,200. So keep that in mind when you're winning directly from the dealer as well. So yeah, from anywhere you would need 8,000 points because we're doing WRC rules. Like Pio said, it could be 7,700 if you're playing with different rules. So what could you roll from the dealer to get first place? 7,600. Generally, you could win just half. Exactly. So you need 6,400 because you have to get ahead of West as well in this case. So if West had a lower score, then you could win with just 3,900 from the dealer directly. But since you have to make up the 6,200 point score with West as well, then it has to be at least 6,400. So that's a a trick that they have usually on the protest. And as a South Sea player, what could you roll from dealer? What? I already did that one. Shoot, what could you sumo? Sorry. What could you sumo as a South Sea? No more typos. I'm gonna go back and edit this PowerPoint, even if I never use it again. So this is where the calculations would come in. 7,600 points from the dealer. So we add 100 to make sure that it's enough. But from the dealer has to pay 1/3. So you need at least 2,600 from the dealer. Because 77 divided by 3 is 25.66, blah, 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 blah. And then you also have to make sure that you get ahead of West Seat, so we can go ahead and do the same calculation, but you need, the non-dealer has to pay 1/5 of the score that you need. So in that case, it's 6,200, round up to 63. I'm sorry, add 100 so make sure you're ahead. And you need to get 1,260 from the West Seat player. So 1,300, 2,600 draw would be enough to get first place in this situation. So for first place dealer, you divide their score difference by 3. And then there's coming back with including the previous game scores, which is terrible. It's just like an awful difficult thing, but it's what you have to do when you're playing in those tournament style and also at final tables. So usually before the last game, everybody calculates what they need and what they have for the game. And then also before the last hand, often, if you have enough time, before the last hand, then usually take a minute to recalculate or think about it. Sometimes they allow you to use a pen in that situation, sometimes they don't, but everybody usually has a little piece of scrap paper that has what they need from the other players. And how detailed it is depends on the player. Generally, I just write what score each person has and what our score difference is, and then I do those calculations in my head. Other people do much more detailed calculations and write them down. But they always have scrap paper available for these sorts of tournaments. So we'll just try. We'll just go over it quickly because we're running out of time. But so let's say these are the scores. You saw someone on the whole table. So let's say these are the scores going into the last game. So these are the total scores that everybody has. And then you get into the game. This is the score. These are the scores everyone has in the last hand. So we're going into South 4. So first, in this situation, in the test, you need to calculate, and sometimes it's part of the question even. You need to calculate what the total score for everyone is with the UMA at this point in time. So 31.6 for A, 31.8 for B, minus 11 for C, and plus 11.2 for D. But when you go into this, so this is counting with WRC UMA. If you go over past tests, you're going to have to use the JPML A rules UMA for the JPML tests. I'm not sure about the other tests, but I imagine this shows up on other tests as well. But when you go into the game, you can already look at it and tell that A needs to finish above B and C and at least tie D in the game, I think. And B needs to finish above C and A and at least tie D. And C needs to finish, I'm sorry, at least tie C or D. So A, B, and C could tie to get first place. D needs to finish above everybody to get first place in the last game. And these are my notes that I can't see, so I'm just going off memory. But basically ties would be allowed for A, B, and C if they tied D. Or C. A could tie anybody. B would have to get ahead of A but could tie C and D. And C could tie D but has to get ahead of A and B. So these are the score differences from first place with the UMA involved. And also the score difference with second place in parentheses, because you have to get ahead of both of them. So if D were to win 1,000 points from anywhere, it would put them in first place, and so they'd get first. They'd be ahead of everybody and achieve the conditions. So the thing is, in this situation, in this scenario, you can just like use what I said before about they need to get ahead of this player and not this player. But tests would probably be more detailed calculations. So I'd really recommend going over some of the past tests and like taking your time with it and finding tricks that work for yourself as well. So C would have to, in this situation, would have to draw Baimon, and that would get them into first place. These would be the scores afterwards. And if D were to draw Yakumon, sorry. Not D. B. If B were to draw Yakumon. This is supposed to be B, more typos. We already did D on the first one, so this is B. Then they would get up to 30 in first place. Also, this sample question came from the JPML rules, and the UMA is a lot smaller, and it's also waterfall UMA, so it's a lot more detailed calculations, but since nobody's going to take the JPML test, and probably not going to take any tests with waterfall, then I just made it simple. So those are just basically the calculations that you need to remember. A could win any hand. A could not finish no 10. They would have to Tempai, because if they finish no 10 and D finishes Tempai, then they will get second place, and the UMA will make up the 10-point UMA is enough to take over first place. So also keep that in mind if Tempai is okay or not. Another thing is who shows Tempai first. In almost all situations, the dealer is going to show Tempai first, Tempai or no 10 first, and then the other players show in order. Certain rules, the Riichi player has to show Tempai first. So that will make a difference as well. So that's another rule you need to check before the test starts. Again, there's some even more basic questions. JPML hasn't used these sections in a while, not for like 5 years, but they used to be like really common on the JPML test, and they might show up again, and they might become common on the World Riichi test. These are basically things that you should already know anyway. So I don't think they would take a lot of like studying for, but let's just go over them quickly so that you have that. And there's still some tests that have questions about like title holders. I mentioned it a little bit beforehand. We're not going to go over things like that because there's really no way. There's no tricks. You just have to memorize them. And also, like, to me, that's not a very important part. It might be an important part of the culture of the organization you're joining, but it's not. It has no bearing on your mahjong ability at all. So how many away? The trick is just to count how many tiles you need to fill in to get to Tempai. So we have the non-shorthand questions. So like in this case, we could fill in like the 4 of characters and discard the 2 dot and fill in the 4 dot and discard the 4 bam. And then you would be Tempai. So it's 2 away. It's also 2 away if you're going for all pairs. And that's another trick question that could show up. So make sure that it might be 1 away for all pairs and 2 away if you're going for a normal hand. So make sure you check on these sorts of questions. Make sure you check if it's closer with all pairs than it is with a normal hand. I also have a lot of practice questions for this in my book as well. So this is 2 away. How about this hand? Anyone know how many away this hand is? This is a fun little trick question that might show up. Hi, kitty. My cat says hi. Yes, 6. So 6 is the maximum shorthand you can ever be, because you're always within 6 away of all pairs. 6 pairs is tenpai, 5 pairs is 1 away, 4 pairs is 2 away, 3 is 3 away, 4 is 4 away. I'm sorry, what? No, it's going backwards. 2 is 4 away, 1 is 5 away, and 0 is 6 away. And 7 away does not exist. So your answer is always going to be between 1 and 6. Okay, and for the how many types and tiles questions, you'll have a 1 away hand will be provided, and you have to answer how many types and tiles make you tenpai. So in this situation, I usually just count these on my fingers. And kokushi. I think it can be more than 6 away for kokushi, can't you? In the last hand it was 6 away for kokushi, but even if you are more than that away from kokushi, you will always, no matter what, be within 6 away of all pairs. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oh yeah, how many tiles and how many? Okay. Yeah, so we'll do types. So types would be 14 types. In Japanese it's shu. And then you multiply that. So 14 times 4 is 56. And then you're using 10 of the tiles. So you would subtract that. Yeah, I usually think of it, so I don't know, when I do these multiplications, 13, there's 52 cards in a deck, right? I mean, maybe most people are better at this than me, but I have to think about it like this. There's 52 cards in a deck, and 13 types of cards, and 4 of each type. So I can always remember that 13 times 4 is 52 because of the deck of cards. So then it's just 1 more, so we add 4, so it's 56. And then you're using 10 of them, so you always subtract how many you're using, and that's how many tiles. So I literally count these on my fingers. Like, in this sort of shape, then anything in the dots or bams can be a pair, and they also can make sequences out of all of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dot, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bam. And it's okay to use your fingers in the test. I use my fingers to count Han or Yaku too when it gets to be a lot. So in this case, since you can use a 5 dot as a pair, then anything from 2 through 9 of the characters can be tenpai, because you can discard the 4 dot. And also, when you look at you can kind of ignore the bam. You can ignore the 1 bam and the triple here. Sometimes you want to think about if it can be used as your pair or not. In this case, we can really just ignore it. It's cheesy cooked. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of dot. 6. Yeah, 6 gives you 2 5 ways, so even 6 of dots. I'll make you ready. So again, we have 14 types. And again, we're using 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's also 40. It just happens to be the same. But these sorts of questions are popular, so it'll probably be this sort of answer often. Just make sure you're paying attention to where you can make a triple and a pair. And having those shapes memorized that we talked about with the flesh hands also helps in these situations. There's terms. JPM up until 5 years ago, you had to write things in kanji. There's one. Let me write it in the chat. I wonder if anyone has ever seen this one before. Has anyone seen that kanji before? And that's actually the kanji for like ron, basically. It means a ron win. Yeah, the second one is used for winning, for win. agari and things like that. But this is, I don't know how anyone would have prepared for this, for the test, honestly. Like, it's not written in any books, like normal books that you would read. And it's not on, like, the rules. It's not anywhere in the rules. Yeah, Riichi kanji is kind of easy. It's not, oh, there it is. It's just this. Let me just double check. Yeah. It's just stand and direct for some reason. It's just like phonetic. You read? I've never even seen it in old books that I've read, honestly. I don't I don't know where I would have like you would have prepared for that one. Like now that it's appeared on the test, I guess now you can look at old tests and prepare for it. But the first time it appeared on the test, I wonder if anybody knew it. I don't know. It's not even on Mahjong Fight Club. And Mahjong Fight Club has like kanji for everything for pon and chi and everything too. There are some confusing terms that might come up. I don't have any good examples except that Ron kanji, I guess. There are certain confusing terms in Mahjong itself. One thing that a lot of people, I think it would be hard for people outside of Japan. I don't think anybody in Japan, I mean, people talk about how it's confusing, but everybody in Japan understands it as far as I know. What is it? Just a second. Cat, you're making me not concentrate. Sorry, my cat is. Sakizuke. Sakizuke ari means that. Well, sakizuke means to make a yaku before you win the hand, right? But sakizuke ari means that you're allowed to make your yaku after the hand. And it's the same as atozuke ari. Sakizuke ari and atozuke ari mean exactly the same thing. But if you want to play with rules where you can win, you have to make a yaku before you win the hand, then it's called kanzen sakizuke. So that's a really confusing term. I've never heard anyone within Japan be confused by the term in pro tournaments. It's always sakizuke ari, and it always means that you can make the yaku after winning. Like, the yaku it can be atozuke. You can make the yaku with the win. But there's always a discussion in Japan about how that's kind of confusing. But everybody knows that sakizuke ari means that you can make it after the hand. But those types of rules, so if you see on the test sakizuke ari or something, it only means you need the yaku first if it's kanzen sakizuke. So that's a little bit confusing. Things like that. So find like terms that might be confusing for you. I will just go over this really quickly. Shorthand used by professionals is like this. Some characters are written like this. Dots are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were questions about this on a former JPML test. I don't see it being on any WRC tests. Bamboo is just written normal numbers, and then honors east is T for ton, south is N for nan, west and north are written in kanji. White dragon is written in kanji. Green dragon is R for ryuha, because they call it ryuha. According to JPML, the official name is ryuha and not hatsu, so it's R. And then the red dragon is just kanji. So, because west, north, and white and red are considered chun. Green dragon are considered to be easy enough kanji that you can just write it quickly. So these are all meant to be written quickly. So it's like shorthand. And also when you're writing in the hand histories. Now it's all done by computer, so it's a little bit different, but sometimes at study sessions we'd write hand histories. I did like in July at study sessions. Sakizuki comes from a banking term. Interesting. I did not know that. The thing is, like, ato and saki can mean before or after, which is why people get confused by it. Like, kono saki, even when you're just talking about physically, like, shingo no saki could be like shingo, like right after the what do you call it? Traffic light, or like right before, so. Okay. Anyway, so when you're writing in hand, you draw a down arrow for tsumogiri. If it's a karagiri, then you write the tile twice, things like that. But, I mean, if you become a pro, it'd be good to learn this. But I don't think it will come up on the test, so. You might have essay questions. So traditionally the JPML test had essay questions, and I've heard a rumor that the World Reach Professional Mahjong will also have an essay question, but I can't be sure. But it's kind of fun because you can really like, it will be something about like what you want for mahjong in the world, or you know, different things, different kind of moral techie. God, I'm speaking Japanese like mixed together, like moral or values, like those kind of questions. And I think it's going to be a big deal for World Reach Professional Mahjong if they have an essay question. Probably a bigger deal than the, you know, like things with scoring and weights and stuff. You can study and learn those. Even if after you become a pro, you can study and learn those. And the pro org can have like sessions about it. Other organizations are not concerned with how difficult the test is, like I said before. But World Reach is going to have a big emphasis on growing the game internationally, so it's going to be important, your attitude towards the game and how you want to help the community and how you want it to grow. That's going to be a big emphasis, in addition to playing high-level mahjong. There's also interviews. I think every league has interviews, and honestly, like with the test, other people like had concerns about it being online, or like nobody cares in Japan about if it's online or not. In the interview, it's going to be very clear how much you know about mahjong and what your attitude is toward mahjong. So it's going to be, it might even be more important. The interview might be more important than the written portion. And that might be true for all leagues, since there's no clear line, then it might be true for all leagues, so keep that in mind. And there's a tournament protocol. This is probably the part that other organizations care about the most, because you need to be able to, like, if you only play online, a lot of players don't know where to break the wall. If you play with, for instance, I count on the left if it's 8. If it's not 8, I never count the tiles from the right side of the wall, ever. If I roll 5, I always leave 5 on the right side. So, and some players really don't know where to break the wall, even if they've passed the pro test, because they play strictly online, and so they have a very like high concept understanding of the game, but they can't like handle the tiles well. So I would say practice playing live, practice this sort of thing a lot. Generally, except for M League, pros never play with auto haipai. The already dealt hands, they always roll the dice and break the wall. So I'd say play live and practice this. I mean, a lot of people play live anyway, and you guys do hand shuffling, so probably this is the least of your worries. It's probably like pretty easy for most of you, but make sure that you are not putting your elbows on the table, and make sure you put the called tiles on the right side in the right order. I would say call tiles the way that they do in M League. Call, show the tiles that you're going to use, pull the tile, and then discard after that. People die all the time. Tenho Churen is legend. I got Churen and I'm not dead yet, so maybe I need to get Tenho first. Alright. Yeah, like posture. You don't have to perfect, like, queen's posture, but you need to look presentable at the table. Don't look like, you're on your couch, basically. Yumi Otani got a chombo at her protest. And she passed. And at that time, she was not, like, considered to be this amazing player that they had to have in JPML. Her protocol was fine, her etiquette, so I wouldn't even worry if you get a chombo, but the reaction to the chombo and how you carry yourself is going to be the most important thing. And scoring comes into play here. Not your score at the end of the day isn't really relevant, but can you score your hands when you win them? Things like that. Professionals always score without saying the yaku. You just say the score. When I play with amateurs, I generally say the yaku. And then once you join the pro organization and you have study sessions, then it's not what is the weight, or it's what discard gives you the best weight. And not how many types and tiles, but which discard gives you the most types and tiles, things like that. Is there a preference on take before discard for pawn's cheese? The preference now is to take the tile before you discard, according to M League. But I did mention at the beginning that a lot of leagues allow either way. Alright, I'm gonna have to wrap this up in 8 minutes because I have to play Armel. It's 2 hours, so sorry guys. And there's tons of things within the organization that you don't learn in the tests. You really only learn it by playing in the league, which is why generally I think if you're going to join a Japanese league, I would say you don't really understand what it's like to be a pro until you've played in league in Japan for 2 years. That's all going to change with World Reach. I think it will probably change with Saikoi as well, but I would say that there's really so much you don't know unless you play in the league for 2 years. Things like in JPML now, the most junior person at the table writes everyone's scores, and they actively ask if I'm about to write the scores. They actually take the score sheet away from me because I'm like senpai. And you just don't know about these things unless you actually play in the league. There's a lot of things with the culture of the organization. There's a lot of things with the industry, with other leagues, and things like that. So I would say that's an important part after joining the pro organization. Okay, so one of the things that you would learn after pro, we're just gonna go quit this really quickly. We don't have time, so I'll just say these questions might actually occur on the test, though. They have occurred on the test before. I've only seen them once or twice on the JPML test in the past 15 years, but before that it was really common. Remember, there'll only be a couple of realistic discards for these sorts of questions. So only count the useful tiles that you lose, and whichever tile loses the least amount of useful tiles is going to be your answer. And generally they're pretty difficult, so don't spend too much time on them. Give your best answer and spend more time on the questions that you're confident with. Unless you're confident with these ones, that's fine. So in this case, the most efficient discard. I just break it down, so I'm not going to wait for answers. The 2 character loses the 1/4 character, which is 7 tiles. The 7 dot only loses the 7 dot, which is 2 tiles. So that's going to be your answer for this one. You can go in and like pause the YouTube, I guess, later. This one, I think there are 4 kind of viable options. I just took the 4 with the most. So 4 and 5 dot lose the same amount of useful tiles. They both lose 19, and the 3 and 6 character only lose 17 tiles. So the answer for this would be 3 and 6. You have to answer, if the same answer applies for more than 1 tile, then you have to answer all the tiles. Okay, most efficient discards for flushes. These are way more difficult. Generally, I think it's good to spread out the hand, to think of it as like spreading out the hand. So in this case, the 4 BAM will give you the 2, 5, 8 and the 3, 6, 9 weights. And like things that will give you options for both triple pairs and sequences. And in this case, I think the 3 becomes redundant, so you're going to discard the 3 for the 2, 5, 7, 8. Wait. Oh, Yoshi has an example. I don't have time to go over it, but you guys can look in the chat with Yoshi's. And there's a couple of fun questions. I wish we had more time for these, but these used to show up on JPML tests a lot. Create a hand where the high-end winning draw, the Takame Tsumo, is Yakuman, and the low-end winning draw, Yatsume, is 300, 500. You guys can play with these. I'll put example answers on the screen. Another create a hand that would score 2,000 points for both the dealer and the non-dealer. If it could be the south seat or the west seat or the north seat. In this situation, we'll say the south seat. As a dealer, create a hand with a 3-sided weight that would score 5,800 points for one of them, 7,700 points for the other, and 48,000 from another win. So I think these questions are super fun. They don't show up on JPML's tests anymore, which I think is sad. So the first one, we have a hand like this, where if you get a 1 bam, then you just get sumo and nothing else. But if you get a 2 or a 4, then you get Yakuman. And the next hand is, yes, Ipe equal Nomi. I think someone said it, Pio said it in the chat. Ipe equal Nomi if you're the dealer, because the pair of East does not let you get Pinfu. So it's 2,000 points. But if you're the non-dealer, then, and it's the south round, you can get Pinfu from that. So it's would be Pinfu and Ipeiko, which would be 2,000 points. So that's kind of a cool thing. And then this hand, if you get it's in my notes. I think the 1 is 7,700, the 5 is 5,800, and the 4 would be all green Yakuman. So everything, the rules, the tests change every few years. So you just need to like keep kind of diligent about it. You only have to take the test once, so you just need to be diligent in the year you're taking it. The JPML test is currently on smartphones and not paper using Google Forms, so you can try that. WRPM will also be online. And like I said, you need to be able to keep the game running. If you want to work with me, possibly work with me, I'd recommend joining the World Riichi Professional Mahjong organization. You can follow them. Here, join the mailing list. USPML is going to be the... Well, I think probably you can take it on a computer as well. I don't know how it's... I mean, I'm sure it'll be a computer, but they do smartphones for the JPML test, like, in the like, the venue. So, also follow USPML, and... yeah, inquire directly. Follow these mailing lists. USPML will be the point of contact. And also, if you're in New York, come to our Mahjong Matsuri, please. It's going to be so fun. Christine drew the cover of my book. You'll get a copy of the book, a signed copy of the book. If you can't make it, you can pre-order a copy until tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, sorry, until the 20th at a discounted price on the Sparrow's Nest website. And it will be signed. It'll be waiting for you from October 24th or something like that. Follow me on all the social medias, please. Sorry for all the typos, but I hope that I made up for them. I hope it was interesting. I do feel like I usually only talk about boring stuff, so I appreciate people sticking around till the end and trusting me even with all the typos. The book has been checked many, many times, so there will be way fewer typos. I'll put it that way. Okay, and I gotta go because I have Armel games, so I'm really just gonna, like, run. Let me just message them. You can watch... I don't know if they're gonna be...
I believe the Armel stream is live, but thank you very much for doing this, Jen.
Yeah, sorry, there's so many mistakes. I feel really
it's
bad
so
about
fine.
that.
I mean, it's like what? You woke up at 8 in the morning on 3 hours of sleep to do this for us. So we all very much appreciate you and all of the work you put into this. Please check out Jen on YouTube and Twitch for more stuff like this. She streams quite often, as well as makes interesting YouTube content with lots of just like stuff that professional mahjong players do. You know, like look at games and
Oh, I
like
have a
interact with
Yoshi
other pros.
Prost coming up as well. A Yoshi
Yeah,
Prost with a
yeah,
Shojang.
yeah. I get roasted by my favorite team. Good life. Yeah. Well, good luck in your games. Mine
Thank
that I had to play during
you.
this lecture didn't go so well, but that's okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sorry it went really long, but I hope it was kind of interesting.
I
I
think
really
every lecture we schedule goes about like 30 minutes longer than the person expected it to be, which is like fine because like most of the consumption of this is on YouTube where you can take it at your own pace.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank you, and yeah, I hope you follow. I need to update YouTube more, but I'm really trying to get more YouTube content up. Now that everything is done and this lecture is also done, I'll probably have a post up next week, I hope, and more often. But yeah, and also we'll be at Comic-Con and everything, so I appreciate it. Thank
Yeah.
you for inviting me.
Yeah, of
It
course.
was fun.